Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are all doing absolutely amazing. Welcome back to another Wizards Roundtable. I haven't hosted one of these in a while because Kobe and Chase have been running it up for us. But this one, I have one that I'm extremely passionate about and excited for. And we are interviewing a very good friend and someone who I personally look up to like a lot. This guy saved me a lot of money, is my homie Alystyr. Alystyr, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being here. So for those who don't know, Alystyr is a huge advocate for the Azuki ecosystem. And I know there's been a lot of turmoil in the space within the past little while, but we're like realistically 3-4 days. But we're going to be getting a lot of information from Alystyr, what he thinks about this entire situation, how to find winning NFT projects, how to spot different types of narratives, and really get a deep dive into the mind of a master whale in the space right over here. So I just want to say first things first, thank you so much for saving my ass when I was about to buy a mutant ape at 40 Ethereum. That would have been a terrible one. But with that being said, let's go ahead and start. I just wanted to let everyone know a little bit about who you are. So if you don't mind, who the hell is Alystyr?
Yeah, so thanks, Wiz. Yeah, I have been in the crypto space for a long time. I'm an old dude. I'm in my mid 40s. And I have been in crypto since Bitcoin was at like $10. I've been in this space for over a decade now. So I've seen everything in the space, and I've been working full time in the space since 2017. Was mostly on the crypto side. My day job is with a very large blockchain company, and then last year I started to pivot into NFTs just because it was starting to get so much attention. And so I started to kind of focus more of my attention on NFTs and learning about this fascinating space. And I have to say, it's been a really wild ride. I'd also like to mention I have experience in leading companies through innovation transformation, as well as digital marketing experience on Madison Avenue in New York. So I've kind of have a more of a qualitative technology background. I'm definitely not a trader, a quantitative trader. I mentioned that because I think NFTs are a very interesting investment class that depends more on qualitative insights, because they're so much more driven by communities and word of mouth and marketing, versus a typical financial instrument like a pure play crypto. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I started getting hot and heavy into NFTs in October last year. My first purchase was a CryptoPunk, which I'm down bad on, by the way. I definitely bought the top on that. But I was fascinated by CryptoPunks, and then was in the Yuga ecosystem for a minute, ducked out of that, and then really went hard on Azuki. That's kind of been my journey so far, trying to learn the ins and outs and develop an awesome collection.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So you touched up on something really important immediately, which was on the fact that everything is community related within the Web3 space as of right now. Like Web2 is, you notice so many people can make mistakes, can make a small little error on whatever they do while they're building. For example, Zuckerberg, and he's screwing up Facebook, for example, on the ad side. But if something so minor of a mistake happens in the Web3 space, it's like all hell breaks loose, as we can see right now with Azuki, for example, right? It seems like, yeah, the community side of things is extremely important, but doesn't that, I know you're talking about how everything is like kind of like a long-term investment for you. Isn't that kind of nerve-wracking how everything can be just like flipped around just by one bad message or one bad piece of media can kind of screw up the entire price and make something so volatile? Like example with what happened with Azuki.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think that I think that if I've learned anything over the last 10 years in crypto, it's that everything can go to zero, right? We saw that this week with Azuki crashing down
And Luna.
and then the Luna scenario, right? So, I've really come to understand that you have to have a gambling mindset and you have to be prepared to lose everything. And then take appropriate risk management from there based on your particular financial situation and your comfort level with risk. But yeah, when it comes to NFTs, so much of it is community driven, and you have a much smaller number of holders, right? Like a major crypto token will have hundreds of thousands of holders, even millions of holders. But with NFTs, you're typically around 10 to 20,000 for most projects. And that's a very small number of people that can manipulate or influence the floor price. And if there's a panic and those 10,000 people decide to dump, it can dip very quickly. But the flip side of that is that I think that what you saw with Azuki was that the bulk of the community and the bulk of the large holders were very confident. And so while there was a momentary dip of the floor price, it was mostly from those smaller holders that were holding, floors to mids, and they panic sold, and the floor, dipped, but then it recovered very quickly because the core of the community was rock solid. So there are pros and cons, and I think that that's why you just have to find those projects that have a really strong community that you can believe in, because you're really investing in the holders as much as you're investing in the core IP of the project. And so that's why, and when I found Azuki, I felt like the community aspect was very strong, and that's proven to be the case. Where, the Azuki floor prices recovered from a low of 6 yesterday to 15 today. So, you can see that dip was very short term.
Exactly. Just for a TLDR for everyone in the call about why we're talking about Azuki mainly, it's because we have something that everyone in the entire community considered to be a blue chip, something that is going to be one of the top 3 projects. And then overnight, it dipped from realistically the past 5 days, it dipped from 32 Ethereum all the way down to 6-7, right? And that was all because of one mistake by the founder, which was, in my opinion, more of a misinterpretation by the audience and like a few other factors as well too. But the community itself was so strong and believed so much in the project, and the owner of the actual project worked alongside the community, because communities first. The same way I work with you utopians to figure out the new features, the owner of Azuki actually worked with his community to re-strengthen back the community again, and the community worked together to bounce the price back up. So they got rid of all of the holders who were really there for a quick flip, and now we have more diamond hands within this community. And diamond hands, obviously, if you guys don't know, are people who are holding in the long run. But what you say, Alystyr, a lot is a strong community. And I see so many people talking about this strong community. What makes up a strong community in this space? Like if I'm looking at something like a smaller priced project like Everai or whatever something else might be that's sitting under 5 Ethereum, how do we know if a community is actually strong? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's it's a good question, and I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever actually answered that before. But a lot of it has to do with the cult-like following, if you will. You kind of have to look for those religious cult sort of overlaps. Like when a really passionate community has a belief in the project that it's just sort of godlike, right? I mean, that's first and foremost, is people, as a strong community, a strong project, you're going to see the community just really go nuts. Like this is like a game-changing project. Like they really believe that this is a life-changing opportunity or a true blue chip, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that, with Azuki, you really saw that, where there was just this energy from the beginning. I ducked into the Discord early on, and you could just tell the way people were talking about the project that they felt like it was going to be, a truly game-changing project. And that belief is, that belief is a core thing that I look for. Do people feel that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, right? Because if they feel that way early on, they tend to sort of, it takes a lot to shake that, right? There are a lot of projects that people will buy because they're interesting or they're smart. I mean, I have, for example, I have a couple of Boss Beauties, and I really like Boss Beauties. I think it's a cool project. I like the art, but, and it has a strong community because there's a mission. There's stuff going on outside of the project that activates people. They are doing live events. There's a nice sense of community around Boss Beauties, but it doesn't relate to it like a religious cult. You know what I mean? It feels more like a social club, which is totally fine. But it doesn't have that kind of religious aspect that projects like Bake and Azuki, and CryptoPunk sort of have. So that's definitely one aspect. And then the other thing is just like, does the community rally? Is there a sense of cohesiveness? I feel like the vibe in Azuki has been very consistent, very positive vibes, and a lot of harmony. And when you see a large community that's mostly on the same page, that's a positive indicator that that this school of fish is going to swim like one. And we saw that this week with the sort of mini crisis. The holders were really consistent in their approach. There was some turmoil, but for the most part, everybody held the line.
Yeah,
So
and I like how, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say one quick thing. I like how you did not bring up the monetary gain whatsoever for a strong community, because if the community's entire objective and sole objective is to get a quick flip out of it, floor prices will never hold up. People are going to be flipping in and out. And realistically, it's usually, in my opinion, a rug in those situations. But when a brand like a project has a true mission, a true vision of where they want to be in a few years, and they have this community of people who believe in what they believe, that's what you're kind of looking for in this situation. Not people saying, yo, I'm going to make so much money off this one. Instead, they want to say, wow, I want to be a part of Azuki's growth in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's, I think that to sort of merge what you were saying and my sort of point about the big picture, I mean, the more kind of hardline take on that is that, if we were to include people's monetary expectations, right? Because obviously these are investments, right? So or they often can be, and I can talk about a different case here in a second. But like with a project like Azuki, you had this sense that people believed that the floor price is going to go to 100. Everybody that I know that's in Azuki is expecting a 100 ETH floor price at some point.
Like big titty goth girlfriend, right?
Right, exactly. Yes, this massive whale that like just swept the floors over and over and over. This is somebody who really just is like, okay, I know the floor is going to be 100. And so, when you have a project that has that life-changing mission or that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, that equates to a year from now, we're going to have a 100 ETH floor price. And so, when I'm looking for a project to go really heavy on, I'm looking for a project that like, what is the floor price going to be in a year? I sold some of my Azukis earlier, right before the drop. Actually, I sold them by accident, but I was playing with LooksRare and accidentally liquidated a few. I have 4 left, and the 4 that I hold are all listed above 100 ETH. And I've listed them at that price on purpose just to say, look, this is where I expect these things to sell. And it might take a year, it might take 2 years for them to sell, but this is what I'm waiting for. I think that Azuki's community really believes in the long-term price action. And that creates a very different community, as you said, from the flippers. There are so many projects out there that are really designed as just short-term flips. And I typically, I try to sort of dip my toe into that in the beginning. But then, it's just very, very difficult to be a flipper because you don't want to end up being left, hanging with the bag, right? And so I think it's my personal philosophy now is I don't buy anything that I wouldn't feel comfortable going to zero and or holding over the long term. In 2030, when I have my virtual art museum in the Metaverse, I want to have NFTs that I would not be ashamed to put over my fireplace. That's kind of one of my personal markers that I look for in buying an NFT at this point.
That is beautiful. So you're looking at everything from a visionary standpoint. You're not looking for a quick flip, quick cash. You have true conviction in these specific projects. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Just a quick reminder to everyone that none of this is financial advice, obviously. Do your own due diligence. One quick thing I want to ask you is, what specific things click for you to go this hard into Azuki? Because if you guys don't know, Alystyr bought this Azuki for 85 Ethereum within a couple weeks of the bloody launch, right? And I get it, the community was one part, but a community alone, since you recently started like 5-6 months earlier inside of the space heavily, what made you actually buy back in? And after you saw CryptoPunks losing its value a little bit too, what made you hop in here?
Yeah, well, I think that, and by the way, it was a couple weeks after the project launched, but it was a couple of days after the reveal.
Wow.
So I was maybe in the first 24 hours of reveal, because originally the beans, sort of like with the recent beans reveal, the Azuki Genesis collection was originally a red bean that was unrevealed, and it stayed in an unrevealed state for about I don't know, about a month. And I only bought one because I was still kind of getting my sea legs on this stuff. And I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And because I'd never seen a pre-revealed collection before. And so then when the reveal happened, I was looking at the energy in the Discord was really with the driver. The community in the Discord during the reveal was just insane. The energy in that Discord was electrifying, and it really motivated me to go hard on this. And when I saw someone in the Discord posted, I think it was someone in the Discord posted that it was like, it was available. They wanted to get rid of it. That 85 ETH was going to be life-changing money for them. And I was like, you know what, this is it. This is the one. And it was a rank 7 in rarity. I'd never had such a highly ranked, this is in regards to Azuki. I had not had a rare before. I'd had some sort of mid rares in other projects, but this I felt like was my first opportunity to have a shot at buying an ultra rare, like a top 10 in a blue chip project. And so I just went for it. And, but what were the things that gave me that trust? It was
like those variables, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. It was largely the community and also the quality of the art. I felt like, the artwork for the Azuki project felt very different than a lot of the PFPs. Also, I have to say, in full transparency, I had just sold my Bored Ape. And the Azuki project revealed right around the time that there was a lot of FUD about the Bored Apes in relation to some of the negative connotations of their imagery. And I did not feel comfortable holding my Bored Ape anymore. And so I sold my Bored Ape. And what I loved about the artwork and the vision of Azuki was that it really felt like the opposite of the Bored Apes. The artwork to me felt immediately universally appealing. Like, I've shown Bored Apes to a lot of people and they're like, why are you spending 300 grand on a picture of a monkey, right? They don't always get Bored Apes. To me, Bored Apes is a exclusive circle. It's sort of an inside joke, if you will. Now it's becoming more widely accepted because of its popularity, but Bored Apes to me feels like a little bit of an inside joke. And I felt like Azuki had a universal appeal. And I felt like the anime would also really appeal to pretty much anybody. And because it had what I expected was that Azuki would have a wider market, wider potential market or target audience than an inside joke like Bored Apes or CryptoPunks. And because I felt that there was something universal about the artwork with Azuki and the way that they were presenting themselves as like very inclusive, very chill, very peaceful. It just felt like a quality project. Another thing was the quality of the art, but also the quality of the website. Everything that they did early on was just done at a very, very high level, and it gave me trust in their execution.
You know, that leads us in perfectly into another point, which is narratives, because it sounds like you caught a narrative before the actual narrative started taking off, right? Because the previous narratives, for people who don't know, a narrative is like a meta. And in video games, we call these metas as like, if I'm playing Fortnite right now, the meta is to use assault rifles and SMGs simultaneously, right? And it's basically something the entire community themselves together agree upon that works at that specific time. So these metas, aka these narratives, if we're able to keep our ears down to the street and figure out what the entire community is agreeing that works at that specific time, if you buy into those projects early on, you could be making some good cash, or it could be a good long-term hold. So basically, Azuki has paved their own path to create their own narrative, and that narrative was that anime style profile pictures, which is something completely new that the community hasn't seen before. And that's why for such a long time, Azuki has been considered this project that everyone in the community agrees upon. Everyone agrees that, well, they're just going to hit to 100, 200 ETH because of how powerful their way of doing things is. So you basically caught a narrative. Do you have any other recommendations on what to look into before aping into a specific type of narrative, or how to define that something is the new narrative?
Yeah, that's a good question. Before I answer that, I want to post just for as a follow-up, I'm posting in the chat my pinned tweet on my profile, which goes into a little bit more detail about where my head was at when I purchased the Blue Monk here, Dr. Manhattan. So I did want to just make sure that you guys could see that and kind of chew on that a little bit after the call. But to your point, you know, these narratives are tricky. Let's see. Russ, you're in the chat right now, aren't you? Did everybody see the link that I posted?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right above Russ. You could see it right above. There is no link there. If you go to his profile, you'll see it on his pinned tweet. Russ, do you see his profile? I just linked it again right now.
Yeah, if you just look at the pinned tweet on my profile, on my Twitter profile, you can see. Oh, that's weird. It says
because we're tagging hosts and panelists. Whoops, boom. Go ahead and now go. Can you guys see it now? Perfect. Yeah, click that and go on his pinned tweet. Perfect.
Okay.
We're good
Hosts
to go.
and panelists, everyone. Okay.
Perfect.
Apologies, guys. Thank you. Okay. My bad. Okay. So we've got that link there. Let me just repost this to everyone. Okay. So now there's the pinned tweet, and you guys can check that out. And by the way, and I will definitely answer this. Wiz, do you mind if we take a question? I saw that Talani had his or her hand raised, so I just wanted to maybe take a question.
For sure. Talani, I'm going to give you the space to speak.
Yeah. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely. What's up, my friend?
Okay. Yeah, no, so I'm just going to ask obviously I work for a project called Crypto Alien Babes. I do like the marketing, and the owner of the project, he's a BAYC holder. Basically it's an anime project. And they've done an episode, like they're releasing weekly episodes. First one's out, and I just wanted to let you know that Azuki is also featuring on the second episode, so I was wondering if you was aware of that.
No, I was not. That's very cool. Feel free to DM me a link, or add me on Twitter, and we can definitely follow up on that. That's interesting.
Okay, all right, no worries. I'll put the link in here. Shall I put it in here, the tweet?
Yeah, drop it in the chat.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, yeah. So that's and he's backholder 132, Uncle Net. So
cool.
Yeah, I guess I should.
Thanks, Talani. Appreciate it. Yeah. So to come back to your question was just this idea of what, like, spotting the next community, so to speak, or spotting new projects. I think that my first requirement is definitely, is the art is the art good? I think that for most of these projects, they're so driven by the JPEG being the sort of foundation. If the art isn't good, I'm just not going to trust the rest of the execution. So I'm looking, okay. You know what I mean? So I'm really looking for projects that have good art. For example, didn't really personally care for the art on Moonbirds. So I didn't buy a Moonbird. I didn't enter the raffle for it because I was just sort of like, I'm not really that intrigued by that. I've really learned that if I don't resonate with the artwork, because again, if the project goes to zero, I want something I can hang above my fireplace. And if I don't, it has to meet the fireplace test for me to feel good about it. So that's definitely something I'm looking for. But for that reason, I'm very hesitant about investing in pre-revealed projects if we don't have a lot of samples of the art. So for example, one project I'm really excited about that's coming up is Renga. And the artist Dirty Robot works. Dirty Robot, he is, we've seen a lot of his art. So because we know who that artist is, even if they do a pre-revealed drop, I'm going to feel really good about buying it because, I know the quality of the art can be trusted. So I think artwork is definitely an important thing. Looking for that belief, that if you go, for example, if you go to Dirty Robot Works' Twitter or his the Renga account, and you look at the tweets, the comments underneath his posts are all positive. He'll have 200 comments on a post, and they're all just fire emojis, just people like losing their shit. And that's kind of what, that kind of energy is what, I look for to identify a passionate community.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. Everything that you've been saying right now has been just absolutely amazing. Does anyone want to ask a quick question in between before we continue on with the next few questions? Aldo, for example, or Ivan, do you guys want to raise your hand right now so we can go ahead and add you in? Okay, we got Sebastian. Let's go ahead and click on allow to talk.
Hello.
Yeah. What's up, man?
What's up? Just quick question that this just came up on my head. So if I remember correctly, Azuki had a 2 ETH Dutch auction. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that sounds right.
Do you think that played a part in what the secondary was priced at after? Like, let's say if this was like a 0.05 or 0.08 or 0.1 mint, do you think it would have the same price action or reach the same all-time highs as it did? Just random question.
You mean with the beans?
With the Zukis. Like if they didn't do a Dutch auction.
Okay, so if they didn't do a Dutch auction, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Basically, I believe what he's saying is if they didn't do the Dutch auction, do you think the Zukis would be priced at what they are right now? So for example, if they instead decided to do the mint price at 0.05 or 0.5, do you think it would have been completely different to what they have right now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I don't think I necessarily have an answer, but I would say that because the Dutch auctions are often going to end up, higher, let's say whales, right? Like whales are going to end up buying at those higher prices out of the gate. That could set the floor price higher out of the gate because, the initial purchase price was higher. So yes, I think that it's reasonable to say that a Dutch auction might result in a higher price if the Dutch auction sells out early. I mean, the flip side of that is if the Dutch auction, if the price, the whole point of a Dutch auction is that you find the natural market value, right? That's the sort of philosophy of a Dutch auction. So if the market determines that it was a lower price, 0.5 or 0.25, then that's what you would have seen. So I think that's what's interesting about Dutch auctions is they sort of identify the floor price, the market value of the floor price out of the gate versus waiting for it to accumulate volume and increase from a much lower mid price.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go on with the next question now. So basically, this is something more personal that I've been trying to figure out as well is we saw all of these bubbles pop recently. Look at the tech bubble, right? Like Shopify, for example, I don't know if you're into the stock round, but was trading at 1,600. Now it's at 300. We see Amazon at 38, trading at 2K. We see everything being slashed and slashed and slashed. And the real estate bubbles popping as well. Like, for example, in my area in Canada, a few months ago, there was very little houses being added to the market every few days, but now there's hundreds and hundreds being added to the market every single day. And I'm noticing that all of these bubbles are slowly starting to pop. Do you think that the NFT realm is in a bubble right now? Like, what would constitute a profile picture like Azuki, for example, when we're going back to what we're usually at? How do we constitute us to be at like a $60,000, $70,000 floor price for literally one event on one or two events, and like utility being a strong community? Do you actually believe that we might be in a bubble and everything might readjust back to like 2-3 Ethereum for these big projects? Or do you think what we're in right now is here to stay?
You know, I don't think that we know. However, you know, there's a couple ways to think about that. On the one hand, you know, by the way, Russ, Wiz posted the link to the artist that I was mentioning, Renga. That's the project. You should be able to see that link just above your question. Yeah, I think that with this question of, is it a bubble, is it not a bubble? It's very interesting because on the one hand, the argument for the bubble is that, you know, none of this stuff is proven. And, you know, we're very early and you've got this, you know, it's a hype cycle, right? And I think that that's fair, but I look at it differently. I guess because I've been in crypto for so long, I really think about NFTs and their price valuations as similar to like a Bitcoin model. To me, the utility of an NFT is that it is the same as Bitcoin. The utility of Bitcoin is that it is a store of value and it's a form of immutable value transfer. I take it for the same reason. If you take any argument about Bitcoin that it's worthless, there's no intrinsic value, it's just a bubble, all of that stuff, you can make those same arguments about NFTs. The bottom line is that NFTs are like a Bitcoin with a 10,000 supply instead of 21 million. And so, you know, when you have a fixed supply of an asset, that makes that asset ideal as a form of store value and value transfer. So I just look at NFT collections as micro Bitcoin. And then I think, okay, well, the reason why Bitcoin is trusted as a store of value and as a mechanism of value transfer is because there are a number of people who believe in it, right? Over time, in the beginning, Bitcoin was worthless because not very many people trusted it. But now a lot more people trust it. There's a lot more infrastructure to support it. It's proven to hold a certain amount of value, right? We're way out of the tulip phase of Bitcoin mania. But in my mind, I look at NFTs as being very similar. I look for projects that have a quality narrative, quality art, quality community of holders that will sustain the floor price. And in that regard, there's no reason why the prices that we're seeing today can't hold. Now, we see with punks, you know, that there was a bubble, right? And so what I'm saying is sort of the argument for a high floor price, but that doesn't mean that there's not volatility. And so just like with Bitcoin, like Bitcoin has a lot of volatility, you know, it was 69 earlier in the year, now it's down to whatever, 30,000. So there is still going to be volatility, but the underlying belief in Bitcoin is still solid. And in the same way, I don't really worry so much about the volatility in the floor price of a blue chip like Punks, Apes, or Azuki, because I believe that the value and the utility of it as a store of value among those whales and among the people that believe in the project will mostly hold. So yeah, I think that you could see projects like this continue to stick with those floor prices. But again, the bubble can burst, and it takes a black swan event, and everyone can liquidate. So especially, and I'll just add this, and then I'll let you, I'll shut up for a second. But it's like, especially when you have people that have invested at a low, like let's say that the bulk of the holders have been holding since mint. If the floor price goes up to 100 ETH, but the cost basis was very low, people may just decide to sell at a lower price because they're in profit, right? Or the flip side might be that they continue to hold because they're in so much profit that even if it drops from 100 to 50, if they minted for 0.05 or 2, they're in so much profit that they kind of don't care, right? And so that's just sort of understanding the mindset of whales, and the mindset of NFT holders is the cost basis, makes a difference in terms of the mindset of whether they're going to stick around or not. And anyway, my point is just to say that I think if you can understand the value proposition of Bitcoin, you can understand the value proposition of a good NFT, and that can in theory justify a very high floor price.
Ladies and gentlemen, the wise Alystyr. That was the greatest answer I've ever had to the bubble question. I've asked so many people, guys, W in the chats for Alystyr. That was just phenomenal, beautifully said. You were talking about volatility as well, right? And volatility is a huge part of this mix. Yeah, things will be volatile, but the core belief and the projects can still be there, and this ecosystem can still be there as well too. But from let's talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. How do you keep yourself sane? Because you cannot be ignorant and ignore the news. You still got to follow up. But at the same time, how do you make sure that like you're not making any sort of emotional decisions? Like, is that just your experience? Is that just with time? Is there any small low-key tactic that you're doing internally that keeps you emotionally intelligent through all this?
Yeah, well, I think the number one thing is, and it's hard for all of us, is you can't go beyond your comfort zone, right? If you get over leveraged and there's a black swan event, your mental health goes out the window. And that's why I was saying, from the very beginning, like I would never, in a way, it's very difficult to encourage someone to buy NFTs from the perspective of a financial advice, because you have to be prepared for everything to go to zero. And so, you don't want to put any money into the market that you can't afford to lose, because I've seen over and over and over in the last 10 years, I've seen incredible projects just disappear. I mean, we saw this with Luna this week, right? I mean, Luna was some people kind of had their suspicions, but for the most part, it was a huge project and it just disappeared. So the key to staying sane in crypto is to not over leverage yourself. Don't go all in, stay diversified. That way, if something blows up, you don't lose it all, right? So I think that's definitely one very important thing. Ask the question again, Wiz. Maybe I can come up with a separate response.
Mate, I think that was basically it. I think that makes so much sense because, like, from my standpoint on an emotional intelligence point of view, is you got to just manage your expectations. You can't be shocked if shit ever hits the fan, and the only way to do that is by actually accepting the fact that this can go to zero. Anything that you're investing in can hit zero. Like, and I want to give the example, like you just said, Luna. Guys, like people on Twitter, you guys would have seen it left, right, and center. Everyone's saying Luna's the next big project. Every single YouTuber from Crypto Bureau to all of these guys are talking about Luna like it's the savior, right? People talking about how the system that they have for their stable coin is better than anyone else. But guys, look, it literally went from $120 all the way down to 0.000008 in the span of like 10 days, right? And that's unreal. That was a multiple billion dollar market cap, and it can happen overnight. And then there's people like, for example, KSI, some YouTuber had $2.8 million inside of Luna. He had 2.8 mil inside, and all of a sudden now it's worth $2,000, or probably even less now, because that's when it was trading at like $1, $2. Right now, but he didn't he laughed it off because he wasn't over leveraged inside of the coin. He wasn't overexposed inside of that ecosystem over there, right? But for his point of view, if he lost that, I guess that was his mentality. If he lost it, he was fine. So you guys got to really understand your situation, your personal situation entirely. And FOMO is a huge part of this as well. Since we're talking about emotions, FOMO is something that's been crippling, right? It cripples myself as well too right now, because myself, I'll tell you guys a little bit about my journey. In the past 9 weeks, I went from 11 Ethereum all the way to 70, dropped down to 50, and it's been a fun little journey. Just from selling Azukis, there's been $400,000 or $500,000 in transactions, and every single day I'm like, oh my god, I should buy. And then when it starts growing and increasing in price, I get greedy, right? And when greed comes a part of the equation and FOMO comes a part of the equation, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. You got to be able to manage your expectations with greed, be able to take profits, because I know in the NFT space, so many people are like, oh my god, if I don't 1000x, I'm useless. But guys, if you make a few $1,000, that's amazing profits. That's always fun to see, right? So never be afraid to take profits. And on the other side, never make an emotional decision to buy in because everyone else is buying in. For example, I bought my Azuki, one of them, for 21, and I sold it for 38. And the reason I was able to sell at 38 while the floor price was 32 at the time, or 33, which was like the maximum it's ever been, I sold at the peak because I knew euphoria was coming in. Everyone's like, oh my god, 40's next, 50's next. But I looked at the floor and I realized, wow, well, there's still 1,000 Azukis listed, or 800 Azukis listed, and there's like 350 before 40. I'm like, are we really going to sell 350 more Azukis within the next few hours, few days? And I saw euphoria in the air, everyone saying Azuki, Azuki, Azuki. In my opinion, I was like, even if it goes to 40, I'm fine with taking my profits at this respective point right now. I'm fine with taking profits instead of making it too risky. So manage your guys' expectations, make sure not to be too greedy, and make sure not to FOMO into things. That's my pieces of advice.
Yeah, for sure. Taking profit is so difficult. I mean, like,
yeah.
And I mean, for example, like I sold 3 or 4 Azuki last week, or like 2 weeks ago at the peak of the current run. And it's been so difficult for me to not buy back in at these low prices, right? Like I really was considering buying back in yesterday when it was dipped down to 7. And obviously that would have been a great move financially. But I just think that like you have to be willing to kind of take your profit and be happy with that. And then, invest in other things or diversify or what have you. That's a personal decision that I try to make to keep my head screwed on straight. Because if you just keep doubling down, you get wrapped up in one thing, and then if there's a black swan event, you can get lost. So it's always important to take profit, diversify that profit into other projects that you feel good about as well. Sometimes that means waiting. There aren't a lot of projects on my radar right now that I'm really excited about. But sometimes you just kind of have to wait until you find the right move to make. I think it's better to make fewer moves with higher conviction, than these sort of like low conviction flips in volume. Now, some people can make a career out of that, and I should say that like there are people out there who make flipping. They make an income flipping, but they're really good with the quantitative tools. They're using things like Dune and all of those analytic platforms. Like you have to really commit to learning the space in order to go down that route. And that's certainly an option, but it's not the route that I've gone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. Does anyone else want to ask any sort of question? It could be something silly. It's totally fine too, because everyone starts from zero, or it could be something a little bit more advanced. Totally up to you. And does anyone want to raise their hands up right now? Adil, I know you've been trying to get into the NFT space, bro. Has everything for you been answered? If not, go ahead and ask now. Hash, I know you're here as well too. Philip, any of you guys. There we go, Adil. Allowed to talk and go. Oh, whoops, sorry, wrong person. Hey, Adil.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Man, it's like true inspiration following like listening up to what you were saying. I just had one question to listen. So listening to what you've been saying, it sounds like a lot like that once you're into NFTs, you sort of have to like follow the trend. Like, you need to keep an eye on the floor price and how the NFTs are performing, and whether it's going to drop. It's just like you're looking at stocks every day. So so this is like sort of a new question, because I still haven't had the chance to wet my feet. But for someone who is still struggling with that managing that time to just keep follow on with the trends, do you think it would be a bad decision to go into NFTs, like until they actually start making that much time, that they're actually investing time into looking through the trends and then figuring out what's happening and what's not happening? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, if I'm understanding your question, I'll try to restate some things, and then if I'm still missing something, tell me, okay? But on the one hand, I would say that if you don't have the time, if you want to get into NFTs, but you don't have the time to really immerse yourself, then you would be better off looking at some of the blue chip projects that are like top 10 in volume, let's say. Looking at these projects that sort of have the proven volume, right? Now, for a lot of people, they can't afford those entry prices. And that's sort of another challenge, because if you want to get into NFTs and you don't have the bandwidth to do it full time, then your only real solution is to buy a blue chip and then just hold for a long time and hope that it works out. I have a friend that's not in the space at all. He asked me, he said, I've got 25 grand to buy an NFT. What should I get? He's very wealthy. I said, why don't you buy a Murakami flower and call it a day? Because I think that like a Murakami flower is like 5 ETH, or whatever he paid. You just sort of buy that over time. It's probably going to be, appreciate in value just because of who Murakami is. I think he has a universal appeal outside of the space. So my point is that, that if you don't have time to look for if you have money, you don't need the time. But if you don't have the money, then you have to invest the time. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you don't have a lot of money and you want to get into NFTs, you've got to grind. You've got to grind to find the projects that look appealing. You've got to learn the space. You've got to really sink your teeth into the different communities and find those bets that you want to take. So it's very hard to succeed in NFTs. It's like whitelists. People that have money will buy on the secondary market post reveal. That's what I did with Azuki, right? I bought a bean pre-reveal, but it was still post mint. But if you don't have the money to do that, then you've got to grind for whitelist and try to get in on the mint. And learning to do mints is like a whole art in itself. And I am not at that level. I'm not grinding to the point of getting on whitelist and stuff like that, because that's a whole other task within the space that's very difficult to master. Did that answer your question?
Oh yeah. It did. It's like huge help. I was just writing everything down.
Great.
Just like one follow up. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I've been like following a few NFTs. Like I've been following them on their Discord, and like when you said that the community needs to be really engaging. So what sort of engagement am I actually looking for? Because like previously you mentioned that and I think it was Dirty Robot's Twitter profile, there were people just dropping like fire emojis and everything. So I think that kind of engagement sort of happens in like pretty much any Discord channel. So like, what exactly are we looking for here that sort of helps us understand that, okay, so this is better than what's happening elsewhere?
Can I say something really quick first?
Yeah.
Of what I've been noticing, because I'm still a lot newer to this as well, but something that I've been noticing is friendships are being formed. Like people, it's the same people showing up in the chat on a daily basis, engaging with each other. The same people. It's not new people always coming in, because that's where shallow relationships are made. But then if you go to the Azuki general chat, you'll see the same people like Deep Freeze, myself, and a few others engaging every single day, from their good mornings to their good nights, giving updates on their days. That's what I've noticed within a strong community, is people have befriended each other, have personal connections, know each other on a personal level. That's what I'm seeing as a strong community.
Yeah, well said. And I mean, I think that's, the overflow into real life. When you start seeing, for example, with Azuki, there were meetups very early on. When you see people investing, there's sort of an overflow, right, into the real world. Those kinds of emotional investments bond a community to the project. And and that's what we saw this week, that those bonds really held. There are people with Azuki that are investing money into developing. Well, we actually, what you see this with the Bored Apes, people that are building businesses around their apes. They're building artwork around their apes, right? When you see those real world overlaps start to happen, that's when you know that there's a deeper level of financial and emotional investment that carries that project, much further along.
They're kind of like mini communities and sub communities being built within the main community. For example, although what you'll see is on the Azuki community, now there's many art projects going on where it's like fan art versions of Azuki. So now there's little mini competitions hosted by one community member for other community members. So once you start seeing that these people are bringing these sub communities to reality, for example, look at the Utopia. We had people making their own accountability channels. That means the community is strong. That is strength within the actual community. So sub communities being created that are actually complementary to IRL in real life. I think, that was just to add on to your point, Alystyr.
Yep, 100%. What else? Any other questions?
Nope, I guess not. Otherwise, bro, I want to say thank you. I had no idea how in-depth this call was actually going to be. I had multiple questions that I wanted to ask you, but I feel like you answered majority of them within your actual answers of like other questions that I was asking. You went above and beyond over here. And I know everyone on this call is extremely grateful. We're gonna be posting this on YouTube, on my Twitter account. Hopefully this one goes a little bit viral within the space as well too, but we're really grateful for everything that you just dropped on us. It was exceptional.
Thank you. Glad to be here, and happy to come back anytime. Thanks, Wiz.
Absolutely. Otherwise, to everyone else, if you guys want to just go ahead and give him a quick follow on Twitter, shout him out, say thank you on Twitter. That would be absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and give him support. He went out of his way for all of us over here. So just say a quick thank you on Twitter. But otherwise, thank you so much, Alystyr. We're going to talk to you soon, okay?
Cool. Sounds good, guys. Have a great day.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.